alarms went up. Everyone's clapping, arms above their head. I look behind me, and there's Andy. You fucking hypocrite.
No one will admit it except me, but we thought Status Quo were quite cool when they played. Secretly, you wanted to hate yourself for thinking that, but they were great when they came on.
And Tony Hadley, I just looked up at him, he looked down at me, and we both burst into tears.
The ex-punk Bob Geldof, who'd once written a song knocking the British Empire, was now hobnobbing with his new best friend, the Prince.
And he said, who are these chaps over there, you know? And I said, oh, that's Status Quo, sir. And he said, who exactly are they, you know? And I said, well, you know, I asked them particularly because they're almost a cartoon of rock and roll. He says, it's a band, and he was sort of clapping rhythmically and stuff like that.
He would have enjoyed a sort of chamber orchestra type of setup, more than a sort of, you know, the cream of the world's glitterati, fritterati, and whatever. She loved it. She just loved it. I'm sure she would have married Phil Collins if he'd asked her.
For us to open it, that doesn't bother us at all. Fantastic. Best spot. Sod closing it, can you imagine?
Across the Atlantic, America was getting ready to join the fray. But one loose cannon threatened disaster. American concert promoter Bill Graham was an angry, difficult control freak. He'd been heading for a showdown with the TV producers. Now, with minutes to go, he tried to restrict their access.
About a half hour prior to the show starting, Bill had our TV badges pulled. Couldn't go to the stage. So all he had was distant cameras. So I got my attorneys and said, I want him either removed off the premises or taken out of our operational issues, or we're yanking it.
The police came in with Mike Mitchell. They were going to arrest Bill Graham for trespass because they wanted to get rid of him. And I called Bob right away and I said, Bob, it's not going to happen. We'll handle the situation. We'll deal with Bill. And we finally got everybody to leave. Everybody calmed down.
A deal was struck. The promoter was banished to the stage area, but he was still looking for trouble.
We had not only been asked to build not only a small reproduction, but a 500-seat Hard Rock Cafe backstage next to the artist area. And Mr. Graham came rolling in there a couple of hours before the whole concert. He had not been over there. Who in the fuck authorized this? That's what he said. And actually, it was him.
As the Wembley concert continued, behind the scenes, the money started to trickle in. £23,000 in the first few minutes. Volunteers manned 300 BBC phone lines to take donations, but Geldof was still anxious.
I thought that people wouldn't watch. I thought that people wouldn't give money. I thought that the political lobby, which so interested me, that I could raise this day, would just be wasted. So all that wasted.
And here now is the band that's led by the man who was the Spock, Bob Geldof and the Boomtown Rat.
Geldof's own band hadn't had a hit in years. Would they get the money rolling in?
I tried to talk Bob out of performing. I felt it was a bit strange. I don't actually know what he felt about it. I felt uncomfortable, but he wanted to do it.
And indeed, you could argue that had anybody else organised this, the Boomtown Rats would not have got a 15-minute slot at Live Aid.
Thanks for coming.
They were very nervous and very self-conscious and probably felt a little bit rusty and out of their depth.
But the fact was, everyone did want to see Bob Geldof. In fact, I would say on the day, he was as big as anyone else. People really wanted to see the man who'd made it all happen.
The silicon chip inside her head gets switched to overload. And nobody's gonna go to school today. She's gonna make them stay at home. And Daddy doesn't understand it. He always said she was good as gold.
His mind wasn't on it that much, but once he went on stage, he was back in the band, and so for 10 or 15 minutes he was back in the Boomtown Rats and he was playing a gig, and that was great.
And all the playing stopped in the playground now. She wants
He stopped 2/3 of the way through the song. The lesson today is how to die.
we'll be learning, and the lesson today is how to die.
Because it's not normally a break in the song, but the crowd have gone mental. Bob keeps his hand up for what seemed forever.
Suddenly that line took a completely different meaning.
Home crackers and the captain tackles with the problems in the house and wife.
16 minutes later, it was the turn of Geldof's Band Aid partner Midge to face the crowds. His chart-topping band Ultravox had been billed as one of the show's highlights.
It was petrifying walking out there, but the roar, the crowd was just fantastic. It must be how a gladiator felt, or how a football hero feels walking on to that thing, you know, to walk onto this massive roar of recognition. The rest of it just disappeared. I would argue the toss now that we weren't on stage for 18 minutes. You were no sooner on, you'd maybe started to break sweat if you were lucky, and then you were off. You were gone again.
Ultravox should have played earlier, at 12:47, but after a last-minute change to the running order, they were swapped with the Boomtown Rats. This meant that by the time Midge and his boys came on, the royal party had left.
As I walked backstage, all the paparazzi were there. And they said, well, how do you feel being shafted by Bob? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you were swapped round with the Boomtown Rats so that he could perform for the Royals. I said, nah. Yeah.
The Prince and Princess of Wales had agreed to stay for a couple of hours, and so there was a bit of jockeying for position, and it was felt that it was right for Bob to, if he was going to perform within that period in front of them.
Someone who was organising the technical side of things came up to me and said, oh, there's a problem, Adamant's equipment, do you mind if the Rats go on before you? I said, no, don't care, doesn't matter.
It was then quite obvious that, you know, those four bands were playing in front of the royal family. Midge is very keen on the royal family, was keen to play in front of them. but it was decided it wasn't to be, and he was very, very upset about it. But there you go, you know. Yeah, it's just the way it is, isn't it?
Thanks for coming.
It actually wasn't my decision. Probably Bob's decision, really, to decide that he wanted to be on at that point.
Oh, bastard. It probably was Bob, yeah. Well, I thought I've given him the benefit of the doubt and said, well, you know, I'm sure he knows nothing about it, and it was just a swap round.
I didn't even know we'd been swapped, you know, on the day. I certainly wouldn't have requested that. I couldn't give a toss, just so long as we were on, you know. I insisted upon that. That's for bloody sure, you know.
Whoever gave the go-ahead for the swap, Midge felt slighted.
But I think the thing that hurt most was, as a Band Aid trustee, I was lied to. And it was unnecessary. It didn't have to happen.
But the show had to go on. Some of the outfits were a bit over the top. Spandau Ballet looked like they'd borrowed their mum's blouses to play to 1.5 billion people.
All right, world! Hey!
My nerves started to go. It was knowing that when you walked on stage, you were walking out in front of millions of people worldwide who would be watching and would always say, I remember your show, it was awful, and you couldn't get it wrong. It was the first time as well that we'd played at Wembley Stadium, and for me it was like being in the FA Cup final. It was a dream come true, to be honest.
And I remember going around in his big leather coat on, sweats coming down, you know, and swung round. And the mics just come flying out my hand. And I was like, oh no. And I tried to be cool and, haha, hey. If I'd had a gun, I would have shot myself at that moment.
But there was no respite for the BBC team, marooned in the Wembley commentary box. Their lack of rehearsal was beginning to show.
Andy, we're going to go straight down there, I think, because I think they've already started. I don't know what's going on. I haven't a clue. I think...
There was mad panic throughout the whole day. What do we do now? Oh, I've no idea.
All right. Oh, sorry, I didn't realise I was on. I'm now joined by TV's...
The heat was on, and it was getting hotter by the minute.
Because it was so hot in the box, we had these portable air conditioning machines, which were worse than useless because they were so noisy. Of course, you had to turn them off as soon as the lights were on, which meant that just when you needed them, you couldn't use them. And some guy came up at one stage to fix the air conditioning machines, and we thought he was famous, so we sat him down. And we were within a hair's breadth of interviewing